Let me start with you, Parker. Were you surprised by the reaction to what went down with Jordan Peterson?
Actually, no. I was actually expecting this to happen, as I knew before this, as I watched the Alex O'Connor debate against Jordan Peterson, that he was very, very not likely to, like being associated with Christianity. So I knew actually going into this that I was going to ask him a question specifically about whether or not he believes this to be the case, and that he would likely be not very upfront with his answer. So I actually kind of expected there to be a response like this. Now, I didn't expect it to go as viral as it did, as there are literally tens of millions of views on clips associated with mine and Danny's against Jordan Peterson all over social media. So it's actually really cool to see that, everyone across the board, whether it be Christians, atheists, Muslims, right, et cetera, actually see that like he's really not wanting to answer the question there because he doesn't want to be associated with Christianity for some reason.
And Danny, I mean, you were the smart ass in the room, according to Jordan. What's been your reaction to the fallout?
I'm generally happy that that people can see the frustration that we have with Peterson. I would say that atheists are not the only ones that are frustrated. Christians are, right? Here we have Peterson saying things like, yeah, I think Jesus might have resurrected, but I don't know what that means. Yeah, I might be a Christian in some sense. I'm a one-of-a-kind Christian. It's all wishy-washy. We're all frustrated, and I think that the video is the culmination of that frustration.
Okay, well, the good news, like I told you, is we found two far from shy Christians to take you on in this arena. Andrew Wilson, let me start with you. What was your reaction to these two and their showdown with Jordan Peterson?
I mean, I kind of have to agree with Danny a little bit. It's like, like people have been wanting this guy to take the position on whether he's a Christian or not a Christian forever, on the right, the left, center, basically across the board. Now, I'll always be in some ways grateful to Jordan Peterson. He was one of the first who kind of started the trend of standing up to the pronouns people, which was pretty epic to watch. But, ultimately, he's kind of a shell of his former self. He didn't look great going through that debate. He looked kind of run down. I think that him being on with the Daily Wire probably hasn't been great for him. He's not he doesn't have the kind of edge that he used to have. But ultimately, I mean, I was actually kind of glad to see it. It's about time we know, are you or aren't you? Get off the shit or get off the pot, essentially, right? Are you a Christian or aren't you a Christian? That's a fair question.
And Jay, I mean, ultimately, these two young men on the panel today, they're sworn atheists. You obviously are not. So if you were actually conducting a debate about their atheism against your Christianity, how would you take them on, given what happened to Jordan?
Well, it depends on what you mean, Pierce. Depends on what you mean. How would I take them on? Well, I think there's a lot of different ways that you could critique an atheist position. Most of the time, I argue from the three branches of philosophy: epistemology, metaphysics, and ethics. Those are just the three branches of any worldview, and everybody has a worldview, whether they know it consciously or not. So I would critique the foundations of the atheist materialist worldview to see if it's rational, if it's coherent, if it can provide a justification for knowledge or ethical oughts. So I think that would have been a much better route. In fact, Peterson used to kind of take that approach back when he debated Sam Harris. He would call out the is-ought problem with Sam Harris. When he debated Matt Dillahunty, he would call out the exact same types of preconditions for a worldview issue that I used to do, or I usually do. So I think that'd be a better route than just sort of having this ambiguous, Jungian position of non-committal, whatever it is.
Yeah, I mean, I would say to you, Parker and Danny, that I've interviewed Jordan Peterson a lot, maybe 5-6 times on Uncensored. Quite long interviews, often quite emotional. He's an emotional guy. I would disagree with Andrew about him losing his edge. I think he's still got the edge. I also think that, putting aside the whole debate about Christianity and whether he is or not, he's always been oddly ambiguous about it for someone who's so unambiguous about everything else. But that's his right. He's entitled to do that. As a force for good, though, for young men, I do think that in comparison, for example, to Andrew Tate, that Jordan Peterson has been a far better influence over the minds of young men of your kind of age than someone like Andrew Tate would ever be. Would you agree with that, Parker?
I actually would agree with that, although the bar is literally in hell.
Right. I mean, you must see some positives in the general messaging that Jordan gives for young men about wanting to improve their lives, wanting to empower themselves, opening up and so on. I mean, do you accept that about him?
I think it's good to open up, and I think it's good for like men to like want to improve their lives, but we also need to be very specific on like what is improving towards their lives. And I honestly don't think that like Jordan Peterson, like within all respects, would be upholding that. But sure, I can say he's better than someone like Andrew Tate. Like I think that's pretty obvious.
Danny, what's your view of Andrew Tate and Jordan Peterson when it comes to their influence on young men? Because it is huge.
Yeah,
with both of them. I can tell you, when I walk around, most people under 25 who are male come up and they ask me either about Andrew Tate or Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, I feel like the question is like asking a Republican, is Joe Biden better than like Mussolini, right? I mean, it's such a vast difference. I would say that it seems like that Jordan Peterson has benefited people, mostly in the psychology realm, like, the whole 12 rules for life and stuff, which a lot of those rules seems to be rules that my grandma could tell me. But granted, the point is that, yeah, he's probably helped people. I have no problem with saying that.
All right, Andrew, let's turn to some other issues here. One is Pride Month. Now, my view of this is I don't understand why we need a whole month for Pride. I don't even get an hour as a straight guy. So why do we need a month for Pride? And it's not because I'm remotely homophobic, because I'm not. I'm the complete opposite. I've always absolutely supported gay rights. I just don't get why we need to have a month of Pride. Beam's creatine is America's #1, and it's made by a company founded on values like hard work and delivering real results. Creatine is often dismissed as just for bodybuilders, but the truth is that it's one of the most researched, effective, and safest supplements for supporting strength, brain health, and longevity. Quality matters, of course, and Beam Creatine delivers. There's no fillers, no sugar, and nothing synthetic. Just clean, science-backed creatine for strength, focus, and results. We've teamed up to give you up to 30% off their best-selling creatine for a limited time only. Go to shopbeam.com/peers and use the code PEERS at checkout. That's shopbeam.com/peers, PIERS. Use the code PEERS for up to 30% off. These sales don't happen very often. This is the lowest price you'll find anywhere for a product of this quality. Go to shopbeam.com/peers and use the promo code PEERS for up to 30% off.
Well, Pride's always been completely astroturfed. I mean, to be honest, right from the very beginning, it's been astroturfed. It was always pumped full of government money, NGO funding. It was pumped full of corporate money. There was an article that came out, you can find in the Drudge Report, came out today from, I believe it was Daily Telegram. It was pretty interesting. They went over, a lot of the modern Trump administration and what they have done with their executive orders. A lot of companies have begun moving away from trying to kind of fund this, and it hasn't been popular for the last couple of years anyway. There's been a lot of pushback on various large corporations, companies, and NGOs for trying to pump kind of artificially these organizations. One of the things that article points out, which I tend to agree with, is that, hey, look, ultimately, when these companies are doing this, people lose trust for them. You remember there was a big thing with Target not that long ago. Anytime this comes to light, there's actually a backlash. People can kind of see that it's artificially held up. There's no reason for it. It's silly. It has never really been about gay rights.
What do you mean there's no reason for it? What do you mean?
It's been well, because it's always
really
been
no reason
about
for it, right? They're bullies like you.
Do you want me to answer?
Right?
Do you want me to answer the question or no?
Yeah, you can go ahead, and I'll explain to you why I think there's the reason after.
Okay, yeah. So there's no real reason for it. It's been about pushing sexual perversions. Never really been about anything to do with homosexuals themselves not having rights or having rights. It's never been about that. It's been about weird gay pride parades and all kinds of weird sexual stuff. It really has never been about that. And that's what the American people think. That's what they see. That's why you see companies moving away from it.
No, I don't think that's true. Look, they're gay people, like let's take you, for example. You're the reason, right? When I first talked to you, right, we were having a normal debate about, I think, morality. And then you randomly asked me, what's your, are you a homosexual?
And you were, right?
Down, right? And then
right?
also with,
but hang on, was I right though? Was I right?
I'm not homosexual. No, I'm
You
married to
said
a
that you were
woman. I'm
bisexual. You said that you were
Right.
bisexual. That's
Homosexual is
homosexual.
not the
So I
same
was,
as bisexual.
there's
Maybe you can
certain
learn the
certain
definitions
ways.
of terms. But
Look,
the
there's
point
certain
that
ways that
people
people
like you and
conduct
Jay Dyer,
themselves.
people like you and Jay Dyer bully LGBTQ
Oh,
people.
yeah, everyone's
That's why
bullied,
it's
yeah, I
pride
know.
because of the kind of stigmas that you promote.
Okay, so here's the thing that's so funny about this is like if both me and Jay Dyer, both of us assumed that you were a homosexual, and both of us were right. That's what's so funny about it. We
Again,
both assumed you were
why are you saying I'm
gay,
homosexual?
and we were both correct that you were
Andrew.
gay.
Andrew, is there
No, the
anything
point is
wrong
that
with
we
him
were
being
happy.
gay?
Go ahead, Parker.
Huh?
Is there anything wrong with him being gay?
There's
Andrew?
a problem with you guys supporting NGO-funded kind of AstroTurf program to promote rights, which aren't even about promoting rights.
Was that a response to what I just said?
The whole ordeal here is, well, what's the prompt, Parker? The prompt is about pride, and so you're supporting an AstroTurfed, completely AstroTurf NGO-funded thing. It has nothing to do with gay rights at all, and people don't like it, Parker. They don't like it, Parker.
Well, Parker,
So
I would
wasn't
ask
an
you.
answer
I
to
would
my-
ask Parker this. Look, I mean, look, Andrew, you said
That's my
some
question.
things which I completely disagree with about this issue. You said women will never truly understand why men find homosexuality so depraved. We don't think there's a problem there. We know there's a problem there. I'm a man. I don't find homosexuality remotely depraved. I think people's sexuality is what it is. So I don't agree with you with some of the statements you've made. However, Parker, I am increasingly bemused why, when there are so many important things in the world to worry about, we devote a whole month to gay pride. Why do we?
There are plenty of things that we specifically have months for to celebrate that I think are incredibly important. This, in this specific example, is incredibly important because of the dehumanization and the bigotry espoused specifically by people like Jay Dyer and Andrew Wilson, and explicitly kicking people off of their panels because they're gay, right, or because they're homosexual, which I think is incredibly ridiculous.
But you know
right?
as well as I do, Parker,
Can I please finish?
if you
Can I please
compare
finish,
it,
Pierce?
look, well, hang on, I would say, if you go back 35, 40 years, I would completely agree with you. But the idea that that is still the case today, I just don't feel it. Do you? I mean, certainly
Pierce,
young
have you never
people,
been on
young
Twitter?
people in particular, do not. It's just moved
Pierce,
on. hasn't it?
respectfully, how would you know as a straight person? Like, how would you, do you experience
Pierce,
it?
look,
Why are you assuming my
I want
sexuality?
to talk about Piers. I want to talk about my
you've
experience
talked
when I
about
went viral. Piers, when I went viral, right? I had people message, saying, calling me the F slur, saying I had a gay lisp, right? When I'm married to a woman, right? If I'm not even a homosexual, and if people are bullying me for that, I can't imagine what actual homosexuals have to go through. So,
Well, what
there's
is, if you don't mind me
constantly-
asking, given it's now been sort of raised, and I'm not quite sure, are you straight? Are you bisexual? What's the
I'm
deal?
bisexual. I've been married to a woman happily for 5 years, and we're monogamous.
Okay, all
Two
right.
gaytheists. I want to chime in.
All right.
We have two gaytheists on the panel that have said that I bullied
See, like this
them.
kind of
and
behavior. Look at this behavior.
that's
Gaytheists?
called a joke. That's called a joke,
Yeah,
sensitive
so
man.
funny, Jay Dyer.
Oh my
It's a
God, look at this
homophobic joke.
behavior.
You-
This behavior is
this
out
guy-
of
You are
control.
two gaytheists.
It's too much
it's-
behavior,
Are you
bad
guys-
behavior.
Wait, I'm sorry. Hold up. Are you guys Christians? I thought we were supposed to be loving to thy neighbor.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
the only
love
thing-
also includes
but
telling you when it's wrong.
Don't
so.
you love trans people, Parker? You said that you would date a trans person. Remember that? Or was
Yeah,
it-
and what's wrong with that?
I think that
What's
you're
wrong
more,
with that?
I guess you are more loving than me than Parker. I wouldn't date a trans person. But,
Okay,
hey,
okay.
he's
Is that
right.
supposed to be like
Two
a critique of
atheists.
me?
So the
Wait,
problem
what
is
happened to being
that
loving?
these guys
I
can't
asked
give an
you as
account
Christians.
for the
I called
good.
for you as Christians to be loving.
All they've
and both
talked
of you did
about
not
is
show
what's
loving.
right
You just
and
You don't
showed
know what
being-
loving
you just showed
means.
being
You don't even know what
bigoted.
that means.
All right,
Yeah,
let's
yeah,
not,
yeah.
let's not
But-
talk over each other because no one can ever hear. Jay.
Yeah. So earlier in the first section, when we talked about Peterson, we were talking about what was good for men
Yeah.
and whether Tate was good or Peterson was good. And now we're talking about ethics in the sexual domain, which there's no basis in their worldview for anything to be morally,
What's the argument for
objectively
that?
right or wrong, other
Why
than
would
their
anyone
personal
believe that?
preferences. So if there are,
Why would
if there's
anyone
nothing
believe that, Jay?
objectively
You're just
wrong,
making a claim.
there's no reason why bigotry is wrong. Why is bigotry wrong?
Well, I
Whoa,
support your
okay.
claim. Don't run from your claim. Support it. Right? We have no. You're saying we as atheists have no basis of morality. Support that.
Yeah, no epistemic basis for getting an ought from an is.
Yeah, that's a claim. Okay. Well, you're saying atheists.
No, it's an
can't
argument.
account
It's a
for
famous
morality,
argument.
right? You're saying that atheists can't account for morality. So what's the argument for that?
You can't get an ought from an is the argument. Back to Hume.
It looks like you don't know what an argument is. Come on, reason. Try to go from one line of reasoning to another. Do you know what an argument
You
is?
cannot get an
Coward?
ought from an is. You're an atheist.
That's
In
just
a materialistic
okay, but what does that
worldview,
have to do
there's
with
no ought.
atheism? What does that have to do with atheism?
In a materialistic, atheistic worldview, there are no oughts.
First of all, I'm not a
You
materialist.
don't know the
and-
basic problem
and that's
of
just another
optimism?
claim. That's just another
Not a
claim.
claim, it's
Can
an
you support a
argument.
claim?
It's a famous historical.
Look,
You don't know
you're
the
just
difference between a
coward.
claim
You
and an
made a
argument.
claim. You can't defend it.
It's an argument. It goes back to David Hume.
Can you tell us
It's
what
a-
an
You don't know.
argument
You
is?
didn't even know that.
Right?
You don't know
Look,
the difference
everyone,
between.
look what just happened. Look what just happened. This guy said.
Just what just happened is that you didn't know the difference between an argument and a
Why are you
claim.
over talking me? Why are you scared? Let me talk. Right? You just claimed that atheists don't have a foundation of morality. I asked you to defend it, and then you said you can't get an off from an is. What the heck?
That's the argument. That's
where are you
correct.
going to
It's
get from
called
that
an
premise,
argument.
right? You can't derive
It's an
that.
argument. It's not a premise. It goes back to David Hume. You just didn't know that.
Okay, can we get? I think we're going, guys. I think
I'm
we're
sorry
moving
that you
slightly
don't
off topic. Let's bring it back to Pride Month. I want to play something which has had a lot of people talking on social media. This is Sesame Street, where all the puppets holding hands, making up the Pride flag, and they say, "On our street, everyone is welcome. Together, let's build a world where every person and family feels loved and respected for who they are. Happy Pride Month." I guess I would say, Parker, again, the problem with this is it's this kind of enforced virtue signaling. It reminds me in a way, for very different reasons, the day in the George Floyd fallout when everyone had to do a black square on their Instagram or somehow they were racist. And I refused and everyone called me a racist. I went, why does putting a black square on my Instagram make any difference to anything? Again, with this, if you don't go along with the Pride Month stuff, then somehow you must be homophobic, is the kind of way this all seems to work. And I don't like that. I don't understand why we have to have any more these enforced things where everyone... Tax day has passed, but for millions of Americans, that's where the trouble begins. The IRS is now ramping up enforcement for those who missed the April deadline or still owe back taxes. Well, today's sponsor, Tax Network USA, can still help. If your books are a mess, if you're self-employed, or if you're a business owner, Tax Network USA specializes in cleaning up financial chaos and getting you back on track quickly. They say the IRS is applying enforcement pressure at levels they've never seen before. But even after the deadline, it's not too late to take control. Your consultation is completely free. Acting now could stop penalties, threatening letters, and surprise levies before they escalate. Call 1-800-958-1000 or visit tnusa.com/peers. That's tnusa.com/peers. Let Tax Network USA make the next move, not the IRS. Let's move on to another subject.
Can I respond? Can I respond to
Well,
that
very
real quick?
quickly, yeah.
So one, I'm not saying that men can be women. We're making the claim that trans women are women and trans men are men, right? That's a separate claim from the original claim about pride. I do want to address the claim specifically about pride and how we're addressing like how people are negatively impacted. And as a society, we want to address this in terms of this so that we can reduce the likelihood of people being harmed or negatively impacted or not accepted in these communities. That's the point of pride in these conditions, right? Just because it is the case that issues have existed to a greater extent in the past doesn't mean that we don't have an issue to address today, right? In terms of pride, right? Like addressing that we should have acceptance of gay people. We should have acceptance of people in the LGBTQ plus community. So
Yeah,
like,
isn't it
counterintuitive though, Parker, to
I'd
say
like to add one
like
thing. I would like to add one thing.
clearly it's backfiring. Like it seems like it's counterintuitive. If you push the
well, there's a
propaganda
mistake that
that
you're
I
making.
hard,
think it's backfiring.
Yeah, it's
I want to
backfiring.
highlight.
Let me bring in Danny.
I wanna highlight
Let me
that.
bring
Where
in
is
Danny.
it?
Let Danny have a say.
Yeah, right. I want to highlight that what the corporations do, right? I might agree with you. Some of them sell out for pride, right? They, it's marketable. I might agree with you, but pride is way more than just what the corporations do. It's how people, identify with their sexuality and, kind of anti-bullying agenda. That's very important and central to pride. Whatever the corporations do, if they sell out, they sell out. But you can still have pride, whatever they do.
Yeah, you can have pride,
Well,
but why
hang
do you
on,
have to have?
Danny, though,
why do you have all the
like, it's
commercialization
not
behind
organic.
it?
It's not organic, Danny. This is not
Anti-bullying is inherently
organically. This is not organically people coming together anymore to force this. This is a bunch of NGOs
Andrew,
which go
if
to
you were
corporations
if
in
you were
order to
actually
promote
Christian, you would be
this.
in support of pride. If you were actually Christian, you'd be in support of pride because you'd be
What's-
okay
oh,
with
yeah?
accepting people.
Is there a cardinal
right?
sin
Yeah,
called
that's what
pride?
Jesus said.
Is there a cardinal sin called
Wait,
pride?
it's not
Parker?
pride in a literal sense. It's pride specifically
Yeah,
in the sense of
That's actually a very good point. Pride is a sin.
sense. Pride.
Why are you celebrating
I'm not-
sin?
It's not
Yeah,
pride
you're
in a literal
celebrating
sense.
Pride in
sin.
the
Literally,
sense
what are you
that
talking
you're
You're
about?
misunderstanding. You're misunderstanding. It's not pride in a literal sense. It's pride in the sense specifically where we're accepting people specifically for being gay, right? For
Yeah,
being
but that's
trans,
not
and that's
Christian.
exactly
They're
what
proud of
Christianity-
it.
Wait,
Because
Christianity
they're
does tell you to do
proud
that.
of it, right?
Christianity tells you to
they're
love
proud of it.
everyone and tells you to
It
accept
doesn't
people who are
only
human
say
beings
that.
made
It
in the image
also
of
talks
God.
about
Gay
boundaries
people-
and limitations. You
But-
have
but
to
gay
have a
people and trans
basis
people-
for virtue versus vice. Christianity is a virtue vice ethic, and your whole ethos is to defend your own personal vices because your ethics are all purely subjective. You have
you
no
proud to be a
basis for
Christian,
rights
Jay? Are
other
you proud to
than
be a
what you
Christian?
say is the case.
Jay, are you proud to be a Christian?
Sure.
Oh, that's a sin.
That's an
Pride.
equivocation.
Oh,
I didn't make
get him.
the argument. I didn't make the
I mean, look,
argument. That's an equivocation.
We're not talking about the cardinal
What's
sin.
an
We're talking about
equivocation
the sense of
fallacy?
pride. We're talking about the sense of pride that matters, to your identity, who you are, Christian.
I said virtue
gay,
vice
straight.
ethic, and you used an argument from equivocation. It's two different uses
No,
of the word.
no, you're equivocating.
that's what
you brought
Pierce
up the
was
cardinal sin.
No. Yes, you are. I didn't say that pride is the sin that is
respectfully, wasn't that exactly what you guys were doing when I said that pride wasn't used in a literal sense, but then you guys equivocated and said that we were.
I didn't make that argument. Andrew made that argument. I said you don't have
Andrew
a
made a
basis
mistake.
for virtue
So
or
Andrew
vice.
made a mistake. So Andrew made a mistake.
I said you don't have a
right?
basis for virtue or
No,
vice.
we were basing this around the
Yeah.
idea that Parker said. What Parker said specifically here was, well, wait a second. If you're a Christian, you should be all about this. And it's like, no, not really. And you haven't really demonstrated how. Why, Parker? Why is it that we need to support homosexuality as Christians, Parker? Tell us why.
Well, I was saying that you should be loving of thy neighbor as you're referencing specifically people, right? Human beings, right? If you're
But
referencing
love
Why
people
does
and
that
human
mean we
beings,
have to
qualified as
support
having boundaries.
homosexuality? Why do we have to support homosexuality?
I'm saying that you have to be accepting of people who are homosexual.
Why
Because
do
you
we
are
need
Christian.
to support homosexuality, Parker?
Okay, we're not saying you need to support like engaging in gay intercourse. We're saying that you need to support people who are gay as they are people created in the image of God.
Why do we need to support them? Why do we
People
need to
created in
support
the image
them
of God.
in things that we consider sinful? You want us to support sin?
Wait, I'm not
But
saying
wait,
that
by
you should
support, he just
necessarily
means-
support sin. I'm saying you're supporting the person who engages in sin the same way you're a sinner, and that you engage in sin, yet you should be supported.
So when homosexuals come to the church and they reject homosexuality, they're no longer acting in that way. They are accepted.
They're
in
not
the church.
rejected.
What are you talking about?
Wait, by
It's
the way,
an
nothing in the
action, it's not
Bible
an
says that
identity.
being.
So there's
wait,
a
being
vice
gay-
virtue
exactly.
ethic that they're not understanding. It's not an identity, it's a vice.
Wait,
Well,
hold on. So
look,
being-
I want to bring this. I
being
want to
gay
bring
is
the
different
pride
from
bit to an end.
engaging
We're going to
in
move on
gay
to the
intercourse.
last topic. All I would say is, look, I absolutely do not think homosexuality is a sin. I completely respect everyone's right to have any sexuality they like. I just don't see the point in spending a whole month allowing companies to virtue signal their way into making tons of money out of it. I just think it's
Piers, how long then? Do you want a
grasping commercialization of sexuality
wait, so
that
you
I
disagree
find
with the current-
so
Is
objectionable.
your issue just how long? Is it you just want a week or a day? Like, what do you? Is that the
If
issue?
you want to have
the
a
length?
pride day, fine. But why a month? Goes
Wait,
on
Does
does
it
and
matter
on
if it's a
and on.
month or a day?
Huh?
Wait,
What does it
couldn't
matter if it's a month
corporations?
or a day?
Well, you
Well,
get,
are we gonna have
if it's a day,
necrophilia
it's a
month?
day
Can
longer
we
than I
have
get as a
necrophilia
straight
month?
guy. I mean, what about me? Where am I?
Wait,
Where's my day?
Are
Well,
you
I
bullied
want
for being
necrophilia
straight?
We don't have the
month.
same
Where's that
issues.
at?
Wait,
I
hold
get
on,
bullied all the
Piers.
time. I've been bullied on social
Not for
media
being
all
straight.
day.
Not for being straight. No.
All right, let's move on. I want to play a clip from Joe Rogan. I'm going to start with you, Jay, on this. This is Joe Rogan talking about the R word.
It's one of these retarded shows where they're screaming. There's the word again. We brought it. We were just talking about
You
that.
did it early.
The word retarded is back, and it's one of the great culture victories that I think is spurred on probably by podcasts.
Now, Jay, is it a great moment, a great cultural victory that the R word is back, which obviously is short for, it's retarded, it's mentally retarded, it's for people who are mentally impaired. It was used in a derogatory way against people who are mentally impaired. Why would that be a cultural victory to bring that back?
Well, I'm a big fan of the R word because I myself act retarded all the time and I'm proud of it. In fact, I would actually probably get retarded tattooed across my back because I think it is a cultural victory. I'd love to be
That's
able
very
to say
fitting.
what's on
Right.
my mind. I think, yeah, I mean, well, these guys are retarded as an example. So we have panelists that are retarded. So yeah, I love the R word. I'm rated R totally. And I think that it's a freeing thing. It's a way to express the way we express things in the 80s and the 90s without problem. Like, you can go watch Bill Murray comedy movies and they're great because
Yeah, but people
have
used
the
to, yeah,
freedom
but
of
hang on,
speech.
people used to use the N word, 30, 40 years ago, right? But then
yeah, and
that
I
was,
champion all the comedians
but that
still use
became
the N.
something that was taboo in society because it was deemed to be very offensive to black people. The R
Yeah,
word,
but I don't think it
the
is.
use of the R
So,
word is deemed
not
to be
wrong.
very offensive to people who are genuinely mentally impaired. and they don't like
He's
it.
making a soy face, like he's like freaking out over there. But
I'm sorry. You just said it's
but
justified
there's a
for white
difference
people
between
to say the
taboo
N-word.
and what's wrong, morally wrong. I don't
Interesting.
equate the two.
All right,
Taboos are not
Parker,
equated
your
to
response.
morally wrong.
So here's my question. Do you think that Jesus would say the N-word, and do you think Jesus would say the R slur?
Jesus does say jokes and slurs in the Gospels. Yes, he talks
Does he-
about.
So Jesus
He
would say
talks
the R
about
slur and
the
the N-word.
equivalents in his day.
So
Yeah, he
Jesus
calls
would
people
say the
dogs.
N-word and the R slur.
He
That's
calls
not the
people
same
dogs,
thing as the N-word and
which is
the
a
R slur.
reference to you guys' vice.
Parker, do people in your friendship group ever use the R word?
No, never.
It's just a taboo word.
Yes, I think it's incredibly wrong to use. You shouldn't use it.
People in
And
your
honestly,
friend group
fact
use
that-
the N-word.
Can I
But,
please,
but
can I please
and out of
respond?
interest, Parker, what is your rationale personally for not using it?
I think it's incredibly harmful. In the same way that we don't use other sorts of slurs because they're harmful,
Okay,
I think that
if
we
your
shouldn't use this word
arguments
because it's harmful.
Hurt my feelings. Should you not argue?
So no, specifically, we're saying it meets a threshold of harm, right?
Whose
because the
threshold?
R slur and the
Whose threshold?
my
is arbitrary?
threshold, my
Your
threshold.
So
Of
it's
course arbitrary.
subjective. That's a subjective
we're ta-
argument.
we're-
Thank
we're
you. So
ta-
it's only
we're
your
ta- we're
personal
ta-
subjective
Wait,
taste.
we're obviously we're
If
talking
it's
about
your
under
personal
my.
subjective
Can I
taste, then
please
it can
finish? Can I
also be
please
mine.
finish?
So
Okay,
that's
well
why
then,
it
Parker,
doesn't
it
work in an
doesn't
argument.
reach our
It's a bad
threshold,
argument.
Parker.
All right,
It
Andrew.
doesn't reach our
fine. That
threshold,
would be.
Parker.
I understand, Andrew. That would be your perspective on the matter. But given my perspective, I would say that meets my threshold. Are you saying it's okay to use the N-word,
And
Andrew?
it's subjective, and it doesn't work as an argument.
Wait,
Andrew,
why
is
do
it
you
okay
think
to-
people that
Andrew,
wait, I
Andrew,
have to ask
Andrew,
you,
hold
why
on,
do
hold
you think
Yeah. Parker. Is it ever okay to use the word retard?
No. Is it okay for you to use the N-word?
Is it even okay to use the word retard to reference the word retard?
I think it's wrong to use it in general. Can you please use?
Can you
please
answer my
tell me-
question, and then I'll answer yours? I promise.
I said it's
Is
wrong.
it okay
I said
to
it's wrong.
refer to the word
No.
retard if you're explaining the word retard?
Say R slur.
So
Well-
you can't. Okay, so you
well-
can't even use. So just the word itself. Okay, so here's the thing that's so funny about this, right? Is like
Superstition.
ultimately when we say
Am I able
when
to
we
ask
say
a question yet?
retarded, yeah. So I wouldn't use
So
the
fucking
N-word. Here's
weird.
why. When I say that if somebody says the N-word, what ends up ultimately happening, there's not really too much in the way of equivocation there. Retard is not actually referring to retarded people, though. Basically, ever. Nobody ever says it, Parker, to refer to somebody who's actually retarded.
That doesn't change it.
99%
Wait,
of the case
hold up.
use
If
of a
you're using
word.
N-word to refer to a white person, it's still wrong. Would you use the N-word to refer to a white person?
I mean, in some circumstances, I think that you can use it in a comedic sense. That's hilarious. Sure.
You think white people using the N-word is okay in any circumstance?
Yeah, comedic senses especially. I think it's fine.
That's disgusting as fuck. You do it.
Oh
do you
my
think it's okay
God!
to do it right now?
Oh,
Then-
wait, is
It's
that an
your
argument?
subjective basis.
Is that
There's no
an
basis.
argument, Parker?
Wait, me calling something disgusting because I think it goes against my
Oh,
moral
you think it's
intuitions?
disgusting?
What's
Okay,
the
right.
argument? That's
Homosexuality is
subjective.
disgusting because
Am I
it
able
goes
to
against my
finish?
moral
All right, let me bring
intuitions.
Danny.
Can I respond?
Let me bring,
You-
hang
you
on,
seriously
hang
didn't
on,
let me
hang on,
speak.
hang on. Let me bring in Danny. This is what NBC said, NBC News, when they covered the return of the R word. They said, while its use has percolated in the comedy world for years, only recently has the word and discussion of its return become more normalized. That is fueled in no small part by a sense that the tide has turned both culturally and politically against those seeking to keep the word out of the popular lexicon. But the battle lines are not as clear as one might think. And there's no doubt that's true. I mean, what is your view about this?
I mean, we got to remind ourselves why people like us are against use of the R word, and especially in public places, right?
Yeah.
It's because it was a term, I believe, like technical term for mentally disabled people, and we don't want to demean those people or accidentally offend people that have children or relatives or friends that are mentally disabled, right? And so it has that connotation. Unlike the word dog, when Jesus used the term dog, right? There's no such connotation, right? You'll have to be reminded of why it's considered to be a
No, that's
slur,
false.
right? I mean, it's like you
That's
forgot.
false.
Yeah,
That's
but
just
so is
made
like
up.
the word.
This is
So
not
is the
true.
word
This is
moron.
made up.
So is the word moron. The word moron had a really negative societal connotation, and it still does. And people use it all the time, just in lieu of the word retard. They'll just say you're
Right,
a
but that's
moron
a-
instead of you're a retard. It's
The
like
R word is more
you're
recent.
hang
I
on,
think
hang
that
on.
matters.
You're begging. Hang on. You're picking and
arbitrary.
choosing. Yeah, you're picking and choosing which thing to be selectively offended by. You're not. I don't. So like, let me ask you guys this honestly.
It's the
I want you guys
distinction,
to
the harm.
answer me fucking honestly. Does the word retard actually offend you?
Yes. I think it's fucked
You,
up for you to
Danny?
use. I've been
Does it
very
actually
clear. It's
offend you,
fucked up.
Danny,
Okay.
when somebody says
Yes.
the
Wait a
word
minute.
retard?
Yeah, it does.
So
It
if
does,
Zach
especially in public
Galifianakis,
places and professional places.
so Zach
like this.
Galifianakis does some when he does comedy and he does a movie and he makes a joke and says retort, is that also bad?
I'm confused the context of what you're referencing. Is he specifically trying to
No, wait a
refer to
minute.
the
Now, so
Arsler?
now
If he is,
context
then
matters.
yes.
So now the
Yeah, he's
context
trying to
matters.
allude to the word retard.
I don't. Okay, then yes, that's wrong.
Yes, it's
Okay.
wrong.
I thought you
so
were
it is
saying
like
like someone.
Any
I thought you
word
were. I
that
thought
references
you-
another word now is wrong, like moron.
so specifically in terms of the one I thought you were referencing. I thought you were referencing like someone responding to an argument. I thought it's the particular term that you
No,
were using.
Zach Galifianakis in a comedy movie saying retort
I
as a
understand.
joke instead of retard.
So if your
Yeah, and
friend
I think
says
that's
to
incredibly
Parker,
fucked up to use.
Okay, so now
So-
also any word
yeah.
that refers to the word retard is now wrong, like moron.
I think if you're intentionally specifically trying to use a word right in place specifically of the Arsler, specifically as to create the same type of outcome as the Arsler,
So
and
any
I do
word
think
that could
in
refer to that word is
particular
now wrong.
intention, I think that particular intention would.
So you can't
definitely
say
be
the word
wrong.
moron. So now you
Right,
can't
you can't say the word moron.
You don't necessarily have that intention. It doesn't meet
so
the particular
this is
threshold
you,
of harm
you
as
just
well.
spiraling into insanity because
That's not. I gave two
subjective.
conditions to separate it. I gave two conditions.
Who's-
Wait, it being
Your
subjective is not a
conditions are
critique.
arbitrary.
Wait,
They're
wait,
made
wait,
up.
wait. It being
They're
subjective is not a
subjective.
critique. That's not a critique against
Yes,
the
it
view.
is. Yes, it
No,
is.
it's not. How is that a critique?
Yes, it is. If something's purely subjective, then I can come with all the same claims with all the same force, and there's no way to resolve the two. That's why purely subjective arguments fail.
Wait, there not being a resolution, particularly between the moral disagreement of me and you, isn't a critique, particularly of my perspective.
Then you can't say anything is morally wrong. There's no ought from an is.
Wait, I can say something is morally wrong under my perspective. You're misunderstanding subjective morality.
You're not giving
Can
it.
you- wait,
you
I have
can't
a
tell me
question.
why
I have a
it's
question.
wrong morally,
I have a question.
objectively,
Well,
if
then
I
I'll
can
ask you this
also
question.
counter it.
Can I ask you this question? Do you think that morality is true, dependent upon God's stance or independent of God's stance?
Ultimately, it's grounded in God.
Okay, so
Right,
it's
and God is
subjective.
a subject. Yeah, God is a subject.
No, that's
so.
not a subjective argument. The argument.
Wait, God is a
The argument is
subject.
that it's objective.
God's
Yeah,
a
The fact that a
subjective.
God
person
is a
makes an
subject.
argument doesn't make the argument subjective. Your argument
God is
is
a
pure
subject.
subjectivism.
Is God a
Two
subject?
different things. It's a category error.
Is God a
How's that a
subject?
category error?
It's two different categories. A subjective argument for
We're
ethics
we're
is
two different people too, right?
different
how's
than
it
a
relevant,
person
right?
who's a subject making an argument. Those are two
The
different.
point is that God is a
categories.
subject; He's not an object, right? We're subjects, right? We understand morality in terms of God.
That's
In fact,
a
anyone
category.
can
That's you're
understand, right?
equivocating again.
Look, can we bring this
the
back
fact
to the
that
point
God's
here?
Wait, hold on.
subject
No,
doesn't
no.
mean
No,
that
no,
it's
you wanna
not
run away.
objective. That's
No, you
idiotic.
can't.
Wait, God having his particular view on morality is no different than me having my view because we're both subjects.
The
Can you tell me
argument
what a
is that
subject
it's an
What is it, Jay?
objective
What is a
morality.
subject? Jay, what is a subject?
You're equivocating on the fact
What
that
is
a
a subject?
subject is making an argument versus the
do you
argument
think
being
objective
subjective.
No, you said
That's
it.
a
Wait,
philosophical
Wait,
category error.
Jay, I
This
asked you
is
if
like
it's
talking
true.
to children.
I asked you.
It's a
I asked
category
you-
error, you idiot.
I gave you the youth
You-
throw dilemma. I asked you if it's true dependent upon a stance or independent of a stance. You said it's dependent upon God's stance. That's subjective by
No,
definition.
I said that the argument for Christian ethics is not a subjectivist ethic, and because God is a subject, it doesn't make the system subjective. That's an equivocation
What do you think
error on
subjective
your
means,
part.
Jay? What does subjective mean? What does subjective
Purely
mean, man?
relative to the individual.
Okay, is God an
true
individual?
dependent upon a stance.
Is God an individual?
That doesn't mean that the ethic is
Uh-oh,
subjective.
uh-oh.
It's
Just
an
answer the
objective
question.
ethic. You're
Is
just
God an
rephrasing.
individual?
You're substituting the word individual for subject.
I'm asking you if God is an individual.
you
Yes
did.
or no, coward?
That doesn't mean that the ethics is subjective.
Yes
that's
or
a
no?
system and
Who's running now?
It's an
Is God an
epistemological
individual?
argument that's
Just answer the
different.
question.
From
Let me bring
subject.
Andrew.
This is a
Andrew, you wanted
basic
to.
mistake.
Andrew, you wanted to get in here.
Jay's getting cooked, so he's
what
got
were
to
you
get
gonna
him out.
say?
Jay's getting cooked.
You're making a dumb
Dodge the
mistake of
question.
language.
Hang on. Let Andrew come in, please.
Yeah, so I mean, this is kind of obfuscating from the point. What does any of that have to do with the point of retard? So, and
He
you being
brought up
offended by
subjective
the
morality.
word.
Are you listening?
Yeah,
What?
Can you hang on? I'm talking to Parker, not you, Danny. Calm down.
I'm
Wait,
talking
you've
to
been
you
cutting
both,
people
right?
off this whole
I don't
time.
understand. I don't understand, Parker. When a friend of yours comes over and he says something to you, like you're in private, and he's like, "Hey, hand me that," and he tosses it and you miss it, and he goes, "You retard." You literally stop the kind. You go, "Don't say that. It's very offensive." Do you say that? It's very offensive. I really don't like it when you say. Do you dress him down, Parker? If you have someone who calls you a retard in a friendly way.
I would like to say
I'm sorry.
something.
My
I
mic
want-
cut
I
out,
wanna-
so I
I
couldn't hear you.
I want to post something to
if
Andrew.
you have a
I wanna
friend,
post
if you have
Andrew.
a friend, shut up, Danny. If you have a friend, Parker, and your buddy comes over and he like tosses you something and you drop it and he's like, you retard. You dress him down? Do you go, "I can't believe
Yeah, I
it.
would
You,
say
you called
yes,
me a
I would say that's
retard."
wrong.
Why?
Yes.
That's
I would like to
hurting
say
other
something now to
people's
read your
feelings.
response. I would
But
like to
who's
say something.
around?
Yes, I would say that.
Parker, who's
Andrew,
who's around to be
It's
Parker?
not hard
Who's
to
around to
understand
be
Parker's
offended
position.
except
Just let him
you?
talk.
Who's
I'd like
around to be
talk,
offended
right?
but
Doesn't-
you?
that
I would like
doesn't
to ask
change whether or
Andrew a
not I think
question.
it's wrong.
Yeah, so
All
I
right,
don't
let
understand.
let Danny respond. Danny.
I want to give Andrew a hypothetical. Suppose there's this unknown society where if you show this signal, everyone's extremely offended. They'll get very angry, like people get angry at typical slurs like the N-word, right? Would you go
The
around
Vulcan
just
sign
doing
for
this?
logic? The Vulcan sign for
Hmm?
logic.
Do you understand the hypothetical?
What are you
Do you
posing a
understand the
hypothetical?
hypothetical? So imagine
No,
you go
I
to
don't.
a
Can you
make-believe
use
society where
really
this
small?
is-
Can you use really small words, bro?
Okay, imagine a hypothetical, right, where
Mhm.
you're going to a society you don't know about, but all you know is if you do this.
I'm
right,
imagining
it's
a
heavily frowned
hypothetical?
upon. Let me finish. You didn't understand
Oh,
the
okay.
hypothetical, so I'm having to repeat it. So let me finish.
Yeah, repeat
If
it. Use small
Let's
words.
say this is extremely. Let's say this signal is extremely offensive in that society. Really offends people. Would you go around just doing this to troll people, or would you not do it?
I would definitely tell him to live long and prosper, bro.
Okay, you're just not engaging in the hypothetical. You're not a serious person.
What do you
I'm
mean?
trying to
That is
illustrate
serious.
Is that what I'm trying to illustrate is that if a
have a
term
good point.
really offends a friend of someone, right, or if you're or a family member or something like that,
Yeah.
why would you use the term but to piss them
The
off?
trouble is that we've got to a place in our society where the language police are now so out of control that we can't even use the word in hospitals, mother, because somebody who is a trans person, trans man who's having a baby objects to the word mother. And that's the problem with language police, is that if there's no natural societal limitation to it, it's never ending. Somebody somewhere will always be offended by a word somewhere. And at the moment in society, it's like there are 1,000 words that upset people. That's my problem with it.
And Danny, what do you do in that
okay,
same
okay, wait, no, let me-
hypothetical if
let me
half the
respond.
people
Let me-
mean it a
let me-
different way?
Parker, you wanted to respond to that?
No, I want to respond to this particular point. Christians get oftentimes very angry about specific terms you use, whether it be in the context of their particular beliefs, whether it be transubstantiation, calling them a cannibal, specifically under their view, if it is the case that they think it's the actual like body and blood of Christ that they're eating specifically within and drinking within communion, right? That us calling them a cannibal, they get really, really angry with, or us blaspheming the Holy Spirit, they get really angry with.
And you don't
right,
seem to
under their
care about doing
perspective.
that, do
And
you?
they're no, I don't. They're the tone police when it
Yeah,
comes to
right.
that. You guys
So,
don't
see,
talk.
you're total
You guys don't.
hypocrite.
You guys
You're
don't
total
talk about
hypocrite.
that. No, it's not, because I'm not a Christian.
Yeah,
I
it
don't
is.
hold those perspectives.
Yeah, but
Well,
that's
hang
my
on,
whole
hang on,
point.
That's
Yeah,
okay.
so why
Hang on,
should
hang
we
on.
care?
That is fascinating. So,
Yeah,
in other
exactly.
words, you don't mind doing the slur against Andrew
It's
over things he
Christians.
cares very
Because
passionately about his
they're-
religion because
because
you
it's
don't
purely
share
subjective.
his religion.
Wait, that's not what he said.
Therefore,
That's not what he
you
said.
can't
how is that a
offend him.
slur?
Therefore,
How
you
is that-
can't
how is that a
offend him.
slur? How is that a slur?
He said, "Would you use the
No,
word
no.
cannibal?" You said,
The
"Yeah, you wouldn't
point-
care."
wait,
That's not a
hang on,
slur.
the
That's
point-
not a slur.
Hang on.
It
A
is to
slur-
him.
They just
hang on.
redefine
A
it.
It is to
slur
him.
is anything.
A slur was
Parker,
what offended,
Parker.
what offended people. It was
See, so
supposed to be
hang
what
on. So
offended
Parker,
people.
you decide
whatever
what.
offends is the
Hang on,
slur,
hang on. Just to be clear, Parker, you are the slur monitor, are you? You decide
Yeah.
what isn't a slur,
Ad hoc.
and therefore
I'm sorry.
you,
all ad hoc.
Parker,
Definition.
can say what the fuck you like, long as you have
Dumbass
decided
Parker.
it's not a slur. You see the flaw in the argument.
It's all ad
Here's
hoc.
obviously we have
told Parker-
obviously we have definitions on what slurs are. I don't know why that's a confusing thing to you. Do you have a definition?
it's
Obviously you
you
have a
defined it.
definition.
I would say saying to a
Obviously.
Christian that he's a cannibal because of communion or whatever, I think is utterly offensive. Yeah, and a slur. But you don't, because you don't share the religion. Therefore, you, language monitor Parker, have decided it's not a slur. And so, as long as you don't think it's a slur, and this is my problem with your
Rules for
generation,
thee, but not
is
for
that you're
me.
so easily offended, except when you're offending everybody else.
Wait, if it genuinely is the case that it leads to a particular level of harm that I would say meets my particular threshold of harm, I would say we shouldn't use that term. All I was doing is describing specifically there are terms and words Christians think are very harmful
Well,
to them. that
cannibalism
they
is a
think we
criminal
should-
offense.
Listen.
Hang
they
on.
think
Parker,
we
there's a
should
lot
be-
more Christians
not-
than
not-
Cannibalism
not-
is
not-
a
not-
crime.
You're
accusing
equivocating.
it of him of being a criminal.
equivocating. No, actually, you're equivocating because I'm using their own definition of the term cannibal specifically because it is the case that you're equivocating because that's not. I don't think it's actually like the body and blood of Christ. So they didn't actually, in a meaningful sense, violate any laws. Does that make sense?
And I don't think I'm actually calling somebody mentally, slow when I say retard either, Parker. So what?
It still
what-
meets a
what
particular
law is that
threshold of
breaking?
harm that I would
Oh,
consider.
okay. Well, it
bad
meets the
that-
Your
threshold of harm to
personal
me when you
subjective
call them.
threshold.
Yeah.
All right, we've got to leave
Okay,
it
well then-
there.
well
It's
then-
been a fascinating
well,
clash of.
Andrew.
Hang on, no, we got to leave it there. It's been a great clash of cultures. I think we should do this again. I think both
Yeah,
sides
happily.
are learning from each other and beginning to bond. Thank you all very much.
Come back without the mute button again, Parker.
I bet those glasses make you see better.